Right here. I'm here to do sort of a different video. This trend has been going around quite a bit, but I just thought it would be fun to do. I am recovering from COVID. I'm feeling a lot better, but I thought this would just be a fun, interesting video to do, so I'm going to do it for you all. And I'm going to tell you the worst books I've read according to Goodreads and my thoughts about them. So I'm going to tell you when I started on Goodreads because I started on Goodreads quite a bit ago. So I started on Goodreads so there's a lot of books on here that I've read. Every year that I've been on Goodreads, I've read more and more books. So I'm going to tell you guys the worst books I've read according to Goodreads. And I know that this is just a fun video, but I just thought it would be interesting. Like, I think that stuff is super entertaining sometimes to do. So I am going to do that. And according to this, I've read 1,470 books, which is a nice start, I would say. And then I'm just going to do. Okay, let me see if this works. It should. Yeah. So that is where we're starting. Those are the books I've read. And here are the least popular books that I've read and my thoughts about them, just according to Goodreads. The worst book I have read is actually super. Well, I wouldn't say it's the worst book I ever read, but it was one I really didn't like. And it is a book called We Know It Was You by Maggie Thrash. And here's the cover for this book because I thought it was very, very weird and very, very strange. But I also know where I got it. I got it from Barnes and Noble Fest, which is like a weird mini convention they had for like 1 year where like you would go there and you would get arcs. They had authors. I don't even know when it was. I think it was probably like the year before the pandemic, I think that they did it, or maybe like a couple years before the pandemic. Um, but I really didn't like this book at all. Like I thought it was very, very confusing. It was very, very weird. And I think I gave it 3 stars, and the average rating is, let's see, what is the average rating? The average rating is a 2.91. Yeah, and I remember my review says this book did not impress me. The book could be fast paced at points because the mystery was at center, but it was not very compelling. The characters in the story did not. I did not think the pacing was also a problem. The book did have a lot of sexual context at points. I was not a fan of. I know this is the first book in the series, so I may check out book 2, but I was not impressed by it. And I only gave it 3 stars. Honestly, it's probably more of a 2-star read. So this one is very, very accurate. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. So let's move on to the next one. List that is apparently the worst according to Goodreads is I think I looked at this one. Never Contented Things by Sarah Porter. Okay. Yeah. This was another one that I really was not impressed with, like at all. It was an arc I got from BookCon, I think. Maybe it was BookCon? I think it was BookCon. And I liked her other one, Basset in the Night. It was very, very weird. But this book just did not work for me, like, at all. It was very, very weird. I remember I was reading it when I got the flu, but I also just didn't like it at all. Book up because this was the point where like Cruel Prince and like that series was super popular, and I remember reading it and there was incest, and it was a very, very weird book. So I gave this book 3 stars. Um, but I think the average rating was, let me see what the yeah, I 3. I think I was very, very generous. Looking back on it, it would probably have been like a 2-star read for me. But it was weird. It was a very, very weird book. Felt a little bit disjointed, and I just wasn't a fan of it. So yeah, let's get into the third worst book I've read. The middle grade book, an arc that I got from one of the conventions I went to, and it is called Out of the Wild Night by Blue Ballot. And you see, this is one of those books that it wasn't my favorite, but I didn't overtly hate it. Story, and I remember there was a big reveal at like the very, very end that I like did not see coming. but it was just like a very, very meandering plot, and I felt like it just wasn't what I was expecting, or what, like, it wasn't what I expected. So I liked it. It definitely wasn't my favorite. Um, so yeah, I do see why it's on this list. I think the average rating, what did I give it? What did I give it? I think I gave it 4 stars. I don't think so. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I gave it 4 stars, but I honestly, looking back on it, I think I would probably give it like a 2 star, 3 star read. So I do think it does belong on this list. Is Pretty Boy, hashtag Pretty Boy Must Die by Kimberly Reed. Here is a photo. Unmemorable read, but I remember it was like loosely inspired by like the Alex from Target meme. Like that was like the concept of it, and you have this CIA agent, and like his picture goes viral, and that sort of sets the book off. But again, it was not very memorable to me. Like, and let's see, it was very, very short as well. I think I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was a fun read. I flew through it. It was a fun thriller. Again, I said this when I wrote this, but I don't really remember this book, so I'm gonna say it's super unmemorable. But the overall rating is 3.04. So, but at the time, I thought it was a fun read. Right now, I find it was super unmemorable. So take that for what it's worth. A bit controversial, but Zenith by Sasha Alberg and Lizzie Cummings is on this list. So here's a photo of that. I was reading this, I thought it was a fun read. Like, I remember I met them at Comic-Con. I got them both to sign it. That was super fun. And I had followed Sasha before, so I liked her content. A lot has happened with Sasha Alberg since then, but I think if I was to read it now, I would see it as like a very uninspired and very like unoriginal plot. But when I was reading it, I liked it, and then I just like never wound up picking up book 2, and then she wound up writing other things, and they wound up not working together anymore. Um, so I do understand why it's on this list now. I think if I was to read it now, I probably wouldn't like it as much. But yeah, at the time I thought it was fun and I did enjoy it. Let's see what rating did I give it. I think I gave it 5 stars. I really love this book. I normally struggle with science fiction, but I found this book was a super addictive read. I loved all the point of view characters. Again, at the time I probably really enjoyed it, but again, I was a really new to kind of venturing into sci-fi and fantasy, especially science fiction. So I don't think I would like it as much now, but back then I gave it 5 stars. So take that for what it's worth. Is 3.10. So that is sort of on the lower side as well. And then the next book we're going to chat about, is an anthology. It's called Three Sides of a Heart. And this is by a bunch of different authors, but here's the photo. More of a me problem, but maybe it wasn't just a me problem. I struggle with love triangles. I always say this in like all of my videos. Like, I always fall for the wrong side of a love triangle. So none of these stories like really clicked with me. None of them were like new favorites. I did find some authors I wanted to read more of. But my rating was like a 3 stars. Yeah, I didn't even finish it. I didn't even read the last 5. I didn't even read like the last 5 short stories in this collection. But I think the average rating was like 3.12 stars. So again, it just, for me, the collection didn't work, but I think maybe other people would have liked it more, but I guess that they didn't. So maybe it wasn't just a cohesive collection, but I also struggle with love triangles, so maybe that was more of like a me thing. But I just struggle with anthologies in like general. Like, I need a little bit more um, than a short story. So again, that's why I really don't ever read short story collections. I have a couple that I really do want to read this year, um, but this one just did not work for me. So I'm not surprised that it's on this list by any means. That is Gotham High by Melissa De La Cruz. This is a graphic novel that I picked up from one of the conventions. And I remember I liked it. It was a fun time, but let's take a look at the picture before we tell you anything else. Learned that I'm not the biggest fan of Melissa De La Cruz's writing style. But I think because there was art in here, I probably liked it a little bit more. What did I say? I think I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed both the storyline and also the bright art style in this graphic novel. I love the book focuses on the younger characters of Batman and Joker, but really captured my attention. The storyline went in a direction that I did not expect, and that was exciting. I really love the dynamics between the characters. It was a super quick read, and I hope to get more books from this imprint soon. Um, so again, I am not the biggest comic book reader, and I think the average rating is like 3.17. So for me, it was a fun read, but as like not really a big graphic novel and comic book reader, I'm maybe not the chosen audience, but it was fun for me. It was a quick read. It didn't wow me. I think I understand why it was on this list. I'm gonna talk next about what is it? Ship It by Britta London. Here is a photo. Books that I picked up, and I remember because I think it was from Disney. And it basically follows about this girl who like is obsessed with a show called Demon Heart, and she's really convinced that like these two actors, these characters should be in an LGBTQ plus relationship. And then Claire kind of becomes close friends, and she kind of gets involved in the show after an actor makes a very, very rude comment about the LGBTQ plus community. I remember liking it because that was like a cool concept. And I remember enjoying it. I thought it was like a fun concept for a story. And as someone that's in the fandom community a lot for like a lot of different shows, remember this happened all the time with like Once Upon a Time and like with Teen Wolf. So I understood that conversation happening around actors and characters quite a bit. So I thought it was like an interesting take. I gave it 4 stars for review. Um, you know, and then everyone else gave it like 3.20. Yeah, so I think a lot of people gave it like 1 star. I didn't think it was that bad, but again, that's just my opinion. So I thought the conversation was interesting to be had in a story because I never really read that before. And then the next book we are going to chat about is. Ooh, you're gonna get some tea for the last couple of ones. This Darkest Mind by Mindy McGinnis. I did not like this book at all and totally understand why it is on this list. Got as like an e-art because I remember I missed it at Comic-Con and I was like, oh, that book sounds so interesting. This was like a wild ride, and I don't think I was prepared for it like on an emotional level because this book I really like hated. This started me thinking I wasn't a big thriller fan because I struggle with characters I can't root for. You cannot root for this character. So the premise was like really interesting. Like she wound up like absorbing her twin, which I thought was like a really, really weird concept for a book. Like it was just interesting, but like the story just did not work for me. This was why like I always say that like I really struggle with unlikable characters because this is the book that really did it for me. I was like, okay, I hate her. It had no redeeming qualities and it just was a really weird read. And I don't think Mindy McGinnis is the writer for me, unfortunately. I think she writes very, very good stories. They're just not for me because I really struggle with books that I don't like the characters. It's just a thing, a personal preference. I'm getting a little bit better. But let's see what everyone else says. Yeah, I gave this 3 stars, but I was very nice in my ratings back then. And let's see what the average rating is. Yeah, it's like very, very on the. I think you either really like it or you really don't like it. And this one got 3.21. But I think there were some people that really enjoyed this book and some people that really hated this book, and I fell into the hated camp. But I know people that have liked it. So, go figure. If you want a weird book, check it out. It's just very, very weird, and has a super unlikable main character. So that might work for you. So have at it, read it, and let me know your thoughts. Actually, a DNF, so I don't know how it wound up on this list. Maybe I marked it as red for some bizarre reason, which I don't normally do. But it's White Fox by Sarah Farring. Here is the photo. it super interesting, but once I started reading it, I really just felt very, very disconnected from the writing style, and it was just a really, really slog. So I wound up DNFing it. Had to do with like old glitz and glap Hollywood. These two characters had to work together to figure out what happened to their mother. I got like 50% into this book, and I remember like not caring. Like and I put it down. So those are the 10 worst books I've read according to Goodreads. I'm probably gonna film like my top 10 favorite according to Goodreads. If you'd like to see me do another version of this or have any other concept videos you'd like me to use using Goodreads, let me know. I would love to do that for you all. Stay safe, friends, and tell me in the comments what is one of your worst read books according to Goodreads. I'd love to know. Bye, friends.